Hello, this is Kaylin. Welcome to Spiritual Relationship. This is the first lesson, the elements and mindset of love in a spiritual partnership. In this series, I hope to help you turn your relationship with relationships around, change the way you see it, change the way you interact with it, and make it so that you are able to either attract the best, most loving relationship that you have always been after and always wanted, or to take your current relationship and really raise the bar, really raise your experience so that both you and your partner are having a fabulous experience. So, the purpose of love. Let's start by talking about the purpose of love. And we're also going to then talk about redefining relationship in spiritual terms, because at that point, we'll be taking the purpose of a relationship and how we see it and really turning it around and helping yourself to see it as it's meant to be in a more empowered way. And here we have a movie credit from Romeo and Juliet, um, meaning to sort of hold that ideal relationship for you. First, let's redefine the word relationship. Let's call it a spiritual relationship or a spiritual partnership. A spiritual relationship or partnership really has roots in the original yin and yang and the idea behind a masculine and feminine flow, not necessarily gender. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your relationship has to be heterosexual. We're talking about energy, not necessarily your physical self. And what it is it is the two halves coming together that make a whole. And the truth is, both half is its own complete whole. But when you bring two wholes together and you create one, now we have like something that's complete. We have a new one out of two wholes, which is what wedding bands originally were meant to signify. And they were the endless band because love is meant to be eternal, because it is beyond time and space, beyond our lives. Love is eternal. And so it symbolized that flow of both halves that always came together. So I love these bands because they have two colors sort of representing both people in the partnership. So when we talk about relationship, we're talking about relating. That's what the word means. That's where it comes from. And so your spiritual relationship or partnership is all about relating just like you do with everyone else, except this is a special relationship, right? I mean, this isn't just how you relate with your cat, your child, your aunt, or someone at work. This is a more intimate partnership. It's something that is deeper. It's something that actually is a combining of energy so that at deeper levels, you really are coming together to be that whole. And in that sense, it's a connection that when you have this sort of connection with someone, you don't have it with anyone else because you really are bonded. You really are on an energetic level, blended, mixed. You bring your whole self and you create that whole completeness between the two of you. So when you think of it this way, you start to get a sense of the real divinity, the real elevation that a relationship can bring you to, the real gift of it all. And when you think about having that, I hope it starts to change your mind, and I hope you start to go, God, that sounds fantastic. And let's see how we can work towards that, how you can have that. So, in romantic relationships, one of the problems that we'll talk about that we always have is the karmatic energy that comes forward, that comes into our physical relating and causes us problems. In other words, when we first fall in love, we're in that honeymoon period, everything's fantastic, but that all changes. And the reason it all changes really has to do with our karma. So we'll get into that a little more. First, let's talk about the purpose of relationship, which is going to have to do with that karma. The purpose of relationship is really to share your dreams and to journey through life together as you grow together, as you realize your dreams together, as you both become more together. So I picked this picture from an old movie, Joe versus the Volcano, that is just a really fun movie. But there's the ultimate journeying together, right? Not that they're in a romantic relationship at this point in the movie, but in other words, it's like if you can sort of, a friend of mine used to say, go through the fire together, or in this case, float in the ocean together. That's go through the trials and tribulations, focusing on the trials and tribulations, not trying to expect the other person to resolve those or anything like that. If you journey together, and no matter how rough the waters are, you still share your dreams, and you still grow together, and you still both become who you are always evolving to at the next level and the next level. Well, that's the purpose of relationship, because at that point you each are your own, you're your own person, and you have your own characteristics, you have your own parts about you, but you come together, and together two heads are better than one, kind of thing. So together you can go through and ride those waves, share those dreams, and before the waves, share your dreams. So still find the silver lining. And when you do that with someone else, that silver lining, because two heads are better than one, it's much bigger, it's much greater. The truth is, another key function, which perhaps you haven't really heard about before, a key function of relationship is to go through your karma faster. So we'll talk about karma in the next lesson, but for now, let's just call it your life lessons. Let's just make it super simple and think of it that way. Now, the truth is, if you've had any relationships, any deep relationships, you might be thinking, well, geez, you know, it's true, there's a honeymoon period at the beginning, and then I don't know what happens to the other person. And those life lessons, they seem to be dishing them out to me. They seem to be, like we fight, we have problems. Well, there's some truth to that, and that's the karma coming up. And so basically, within relationship or those life lessons, when you are riding those waves together, it's true, the other person might help bring some of those life lessons forward. You might feel like they're kind of rubbing it in, or they push your buttons, but that's just bringing the reality of the ocean, if you will, the reality of those waves forward, so that you can go through them faster. And the difference is when people start to blame the other person and get mad at the other person for pushing their buttons, then that tends to cause all sorts of difficulties in the relationship, and it can get bad enough to the point where it can't be salvaged. On the other hand, when you turn around and you look at the other person and you realize that they're not the source of your karma. They're not the source of the big waves in the ocean. They're not the source of your being lost in the ocean, kind of thing. Then you start to take a different approach. You start to think about things differently. If you put them in the position of your spiritual relationship or your partner, and you see them as a partner who perhaps brings it up, but they're not the source of it, then you can start to change your mind and decide that together you guys can go through and meet those challenges, go through those life lessons, and become bigger and better for it. The third purpose of relationship is very simply to know God. And of course, anyone who has had sex knows that there is that place of physically or something bigger than your physical self energetically coming to know God. But there's also something that is very much about coming to know God when you do turn around and look at the other person, decide that they're your spiritual relationship or your partner, and you go through it together. Now, when you have those kinds of journeys together, you really do get to know God in a whole different way. Another purpose is to share. So often people lean on someone else, and I think this is a really good example. This movie slide picture from When Harry Met Sally. In the movie, they're friends and they lean on each other, but they aren't necessarily always sharing. And you can share, but when you're also leaning on the other person as if they were a crutch, then you always have a handicap. So I want you to also change your mind, and a part of how we're going to see spiritual relationship in a different light, or that partnership in a different light, is we're going to see the purpose differently. When you come to recognize that the purpose is to share yourself, who you truly are, to share the best parts of you, which are your hopes, your dreams, your creativity, to share your personality, the best parts of your person, to have the same values as them, perhaps in your spiritual goals, perhaps in who you want to be, you're wanting to be more. When you share all of that, that's so much easier to connect with. That's so much more fun to connect with. That can be a wonderful thing. So when you're sharing in that sense, you're evolving together. And that is going to create a whole different kind of relating, because you're relating on a much higher vibrating level, and you're bringing out your best, most brightest parts, kind of thing. On the other hand, if you're expecting the other person to be a crutch and to make you feel better, and maybe they're the person you turn to when you're down, well, that's that handicap. Now you're not sharing your highest being, you're sharing your handicaps. Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't be able to share your problems. It's not to say that this isn't meant to be your confidant, someone who you can talk to. It's not that. It's more like, when you think of the way you relate with intimate relationships, a key question is, most of the time, how do you relate? Most of the time, do you put your best foot forward? Because we all falter and we all have a bad day. There's no way around that. And this is the person who can help us, sure. But the problem comes when it's perpetual, when every day is a bad day. On the other hand, if on a daily basis we're really bringing our own brightest version forward, sharing our brightest selves, and then we have a day that's bad, or even two or three, that's not such a big deal. It's more of the fact that we're really at our core sharing more of our heart, more of who we are. So more of the pie, if we were to chart out into a pie, who we're sharing from ourselves. If most of our pie is coming from our dreams, our best parts, our gifts, well, that creates a very different flavor in life, doesn't it? And the truth is, not only for you, but also for your partner. In other words, when your piece of pie is greater, that is more aligned to who you really are, aligned to more of your authenticity, more of your greatness, it's sweeter for you. It's also sweeter for them, but it's sweeter for you. And that's important. That's really important. You really want to share, therefore, your authentic self. If you were physically what you eat, you hear that you are what you eat, then can you imagine what happens with your emotions? It's back to that pie, that emotional pie. If most of those emotions are a bad day, a problem, bitter, life isn't fair, I'm always having a hard time, that's what you're emotionally eating. So can you imagine what that's doing? So we want to really instead do our best to focus on the light within us and our God-given gifts and bring that forward. Not so much our insecurities, not because we need to hide them or we shouldn't have them, but because we just don't want to make more of our pie out of insecurities. When you're putting in ingredients for this pie, insecurities might be there, but minimize it. Add a lot more of who you want to be. Here's a tip for you. In relationships, don't choose a stop, a cold shoulder, a block. Instead, always try to come at it from an open heart. Because when it is that you are quick to be upset, quick to wall off, quick to put up that hand, and kind of put up a cold shoulder, well, look at what this piece of pie, so to speak, creates. No love is created here. No resolution comes out of it. So this is a really good place to shift how you see relationship and how you're going to treat it. Treat it more from an open heart. A closed heart is going to create the degradation of a relationship. An open heart leaves the opportunity and the ability for something to continue to expand, to evolve, and to grow. And it's also more of who you are. So in sharing your hopes, dreams, and desires, think of all of your relationships as being about relating, because this is true everywhere. So When you think about sharing your hopes, dreams, and desires, and this is one of the best parts of you because it holds your greatest ideas, your greatest inspirations, visions, and dreams. When you share this with everyone, not just your intimate relationship, just imagine you're going to be far more easy to connect with and to want to be around. That's wonderful stuff to hear about. So at that point, you're always giving who you really are and you're always giving your best. Because, like I said, the soul of who you are lies in those hopes, dreams, and desires. Those hopes, dreams, and desires, specifically what you want to be, who you are, they really are your guidance system. They will direct you in a way in life that is just always going to keep you happy and fulfilled. When you're really in touch with those hopes, dreams, and desires, you have an open heart and you go from there. They they are like the map to heaven on earth kind of thing. So it's important to bring that out. It's real important, especially in a spiritual partnership or relationship, because when two people bring their dreams forward, they are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times more powerful. And that's one of the beauties of relationship is it has the ability to take your little dream and the other person's little dream and turn them into big, much bigger dreams. So, tip, share your soul, share your dreams with your loved ones, especially your romantic love. Share your personal and spiritual goals. Dreams are 3 times more powerful at that point. So don't forget, do everything, have the things in common and share those. That helps you grow together. Share your creative endeavors. What are you passionate about? What drives you? What wakes you up and gets you excited in the morning? When you share that from that place, you're really sharing from your source energy. That could be your God, your higher self, the universe, whatever word you like. I like to use source energy. And it puts you in the zone and it puts you in a much higher vibrating place and a better place to be sharing from and to be connecting with your mate. And it helps you do amazing things and do amazing things together in life. When two people are connected and being creative, amazing things happen. And this credit is from House of Cards, which is a Netflix TV show. Great show. And it's a really good example of sort of two powerhouses that are in a spiritual, well, maybe not spiritual, in a partnership. And it really illustrates, this is great if you want to watch the show or if you've seen it, it's a great way that illustrates how them coming together makes them far more powerful. They've achieved so much more than they could have if they were alone. So thank you for joining me in the first lesson. Be sure to join our private Facebook group where you can come share with other people who might be seeking a relationship, a spiritual partnership. You can ask questions or perhaps make some great new friends. In our next lesson, we'll be talking about karma. And we'll talk about why relationships fail, which has a lot to do with that karma or life lessons, if you will. We'll redefine karma a little more and how to create true love. Thank you again for joining me. I'll see you in the next lesson.